A&B Properties is Quincy's largest apartment rental company with hundreds of units available. They offer short-term and long-term rentals with 1 up to 4 bedroom apartments. A&B Properties meets the needs of its tenants with care, compassion, and a quality of service that exceeds expectations. A&B Properties also has a convenient tenant app for you to do your payments or make repair requests. Give them a call today. A&B Properties, 217-919-8080, Quincy.
So Adam Booth, how you doing?
Good. How about you, bud?
I'm really happy you're here.
We'll see if we can make it fun.
We'll make it fun. But I got a question for you.
Uh-oh.
Well, I know we talked about Alabama and Mizzou in the green room. We were talking to Bob and you and David about whatever, football. I'm sorry about your Crimson Tide.
Can't win them all.
Okay, but good job making it to the top 4. Good job beating the dog do out of Florida State.
Yeah, well, I was Georgia.
Not Florida. I'm sorry, Georgia.
No, Bama, yes, we always want to win them all, but preseason I chalked us up for 3 losses, so we only had 2. So expectations exceeded. So
you guys always do a good job. So one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you on this pod was because I've got a small problem, and I want to know if you can help me. It turns out that I think that a lot of people are censoring themselves too far into the negative. So I've had really good guests on, really good. They're really well known in the community. They're movers and shakers. They get a lot done, and they get in front of a microphone, or they see the lights on them and the cameras, and they don't necessarily want to say really what they think. And I'm talking about I'm not going to name names because they're all people that you and I know, and listeners and viewers like to see them on, and they're incredibly good people. And they don't really want to say too much. They don't want to ruffle the feathers.
it's always tough.
So I was wondering, would you so you can say pass if I say something, if I ask a question that you don't like, definitely say pass. But I was wondering if you would consider saying what's on your mind about certain things.
Anybody that knows me generally knows that I do.
Yeah, don't worry about this. This is why when you're on here,
No, I mean, I don't know, anything that I'm going to, whether it be put out there on social media or in a conversation one-on-one, if it's something I feel, I'm not going to hide from that, more typically. I mean, I guess you can never say never, but I'm generally very transparent in where I stand on an issue. Good, bad, or indifferent doesn't mean you have to agree or disagree, but no, I'll give it my best.
Okay, so Muddy River is a champion of local news. And so Muddy River doesn't really get too far into the geopolitics and get into all of these the stuff on the world news or national news. I mean, it always touches on things that affect the community because
but I don't think they need to.
They don't need to. But we can do this as an opinion spot. We can talk about it. So thank you for helping me with this problem. I think there is something wrong at the border. And I'm just going to, this is in the news, and I think there's a really big problem at the southern border. I don't think there's hardly any problem at the northern border.
No, I mean, anybody that says there's not a southern border issue, every bit of data says otherwise. What's the solution? I mean, I think that's where the opinions could really start flaring. But if you're going to say there's no problem at the border, you got your head in the sand. The data, every which way you look at it, there's something wrong.
So I don't know what the number is. I kind of looked it up before I got here, and there's either hundreds of thousands of people coming through every month. So for the year of 2023, I think a very heavy number I saw was 8 million. A lighter number I saw was about 200 to 300,000 a month. So, you can kind of do the math on that, somewhere between, I don't know, if we said 4 million people are coming across a year, I don't know what the number is.
I don't think anybody does.
I don't think anybody knows the number.
No, that's all they're going to do is take a speckling and then try to expand it out to develop a number. I mean, if we truly knew the number, then we wouldn't be having illegal crossings.
Why is this happening right now, in your opinion?
I mean, it starts, you know, if your administration isn't going to come down on somebody coming into the country illegally, you're not going to deter the next person from doing it as well. You know, there's a legal process to come into the country, and there has been since our inception. But right now, it's always, you know, your Border Patrol agents are, at what point do they quit patrolling the border as often if they know that that person's just going to get released in the country and let be, and sometimes given more freedoms than us legal residents get. You know, so, you know, so if you're the boots on the ground of the border agent, are you going to just look the other way, or are you going to go waste your time doing paperwork to process these 12 people you just saw hop the fence, when the last 6 times you've done it, it hasn't went anywhere? Sometimes you've caught the same person multiple times, maybe. I don't know. So I think, you know, so it starts, it's not the boots on the ground causing the problem. It starts from an administration. And obviously you look at in the White House, that administration is very sympathetic to illegal immigrants. And I'll use the word illegal because they didn't come in the right way.
I wonder if it's possible for you and I to be sympathetic to migrants, to refugees, to illegal immigrants. Is it possible to be sympathetic to them, but also say, I'm sorry, but you 4 million people who, by the way, I've been seeing the videos, this whole idea of it's grandmas and women and children and orphans, that's not the bulk of what I'm seeing. I'm seeing military age men with really nice jackets that they got from the UN. I'm seeing them coming across the border in droves. I don't think it's this. I'm sure. I've also seen videos of women passing their babies through barbed wire. So I'm not saying that's not happening. I'm just saying that I think something else is afoot. And before COVID, I thought that conspiracy theories. You know, I thought that maybe it's just something in my brain. I've got a worm in my brain that's infecting me. But now I don't really see the world that way.
It's persistent. You know, eventually you go, hold on here. This isn't just something I'm imagining, or because there's always the conspiracy side, and I don't typically buy into that stuff. It's got to be a little more realistic. I mean, the conspiracy side of things could drive us all crazy, and we're borderline there anyways. But so at what point should we be sympathetic? Yeah, I think there's, you know, being sympathetic. Absolutely. I don't want, you know, I understand and respect those people trying to better their life, and they realize there's opportunity here in the United States that there may not be in their country. And the truth of the matter is, given our labor shortage, we're going to need more labor. But it goes back to there's still a legal process to do it. Now, maybe we as a country need to look at that legal process of, I'm not saying bend the rules, but do we maybe need to look at the criteria to find a happy medium of, we do need workers, but we need you to come in the legal way, so you're paying taxes like everybody else. You're contributing to society in many ways because you're going to use city functions or state functions. So I think there's somewhere in the middle. You know, our immigration laws of 50 years ago, maybe they're not fitting the mold. They're clearly not working now. So we need to look at how do we work with it. But
do you think the current administration is trying to overwhelm the system, or do you think it's trying to overwhelm either? I'm not making the claim that they're all getting all of the entitlement benefits that Americans get, but it's weird. Like, so in Illinois, I do think that there's a problem in Illinois regarding being really lax on some crime laws, possibly giving illegal immigrants, migrants, driver's licenses, at the same time telling the citizens of Illinois that they have to register their weapons now. I mean, all of these things happen all at once. And when it's just like a handful, half a dozen to a dozen things happening at the same time, and they're all kind of working, on one hand, they're working against each other, and on the other hand, they're working perfectly together.
It makes you start to question a little more. And I think the administration right now, or I would say beyond that, just, from the Democratic side, they're definitely more of, oh my gosh, we want to help everybody. We want, without looking at the cost of such. So, they want to help everybody, and heck, don't we all? But we've got to take care of our own first. And as a country, we're $33 trillion in debt. We aren't taking care of our own. We're just borrowing on it. And so
I think it's 34T, and I think that
I think it's going up 300 or 400 billion a day.
it's something like,
It's insane.
I think the largest line item of spending is going to be interest on the debt. I think that eventually
I was just reading it the other day that yes, I think next year is when they project interest to exceed military spending. That's the biggest line item.
So speaking of military spending, speaking of government, what do you think about Gavin Newsom, and what do you think about Vivek? So you got Gavin Newsom on the Democratic side, maybe possibly vying for a spot. And then you got this. Do you know who I'm talking about? That Vivek Ramaswamy guy?
Yeah, I think he's running fourth or something on the presidential polling.
Well, so without saying the T word, I'm talking about that guy who's president. You can't really talk about that guy, but we should talk about that guy. Anyway, as the election comes up, I bet we'll have lots of opportunities to talk about it. But what do you think? Like, I think that Vivek character, who's a really interesting person, he was the one who was kind of talking about how the interest might be one of the largest line items. And he's an interesting. Do you think we need a guy like that?
Oh, I think all of us, as we look at politics, where it's become nowadays, absolutely. It's so polarizing. You're either this or that, and at the end of the day, it always goes back to when the country was founded, you would go into politics to finish out your career. Now we have career politicians that have never worked a day in their life other than being a politician. So how does that person really know what's best for me when they haven't ran a business? They haven't done the things that they're telling us how to do. And so at some point, I think, and you could argue Trump was that as well, that he was a business side, not a politician. But I don't know, given where we were at 4 years ago to where we're at now economically, I'll take a business guy. And so Vivek, whatever, I'm all ears. It's.
Does he seem to say a lot of the right things to you? Do you think he's talking and doesn't have anything to back it up?
I think he's catering too much to what the far right wants to hear to get the primary support. I don't know that there's enough substance behind what he's saying yet for me to go, that's my guy. Just, it's he's sometimes it seems like he is going so hard right, which we've all learned that's what it takes to win a primary. You have to be extreme left or right to win a primary. A moderate doesn't win a primary. You look at Darren Bailey. Bailey carried the primary easy, then he goes to the general and gets hammered.
Yeah.
And so I think he's a little bit too much of, saying what's popular to his core base instead of maybe saying what needs to be said. And I guess I consider myself a moderate. There's certain areas where I'm left or right, but obviously I'm majority right, but doesn't mean I'm hard right. And I just feel like that sometimes he's so worried about offending the hard right, and so is he holding back? There's
a friend of mine in Chicago that knows Vivek just kind of tangentially, but doesn't know him, doesn't truly know his background or anything, but thinks that he's a Trump plant, that maybe Trump planted him there. But I don't know, because he a lot of the things that he says is very Trumpish in terms of this.
I think he is very aware of who's leading the Republican primary, and I think he is positioning himself to hopefully be the number two.
Interesting. Who do you think is going to be the Democratic nominee this year for the presidential election?
As much as I would love to see conspiracy sides of he's going to step down, you're getting late enough in the game. Barring a health issue, I mean, it's going to be Biden.
Okay.
Newsom and Pritzker are sitting there in the wings waiting for a major hiccup, but each day that ticks away, you're you're not going to assemble a campaign. You know, I think at this point the Democrats it is what it is, and you know, it could be a toss up if it's a rematch. You know, from 2020. You know, I think that they're somewhat content to go and they'll take their chances, but I don't think it's as favorable as they'd like. But they know that at worst case it's just a 4-year president, and then there's Newsom or Pritzker in the wings. You know, I don't see anything else other than that.
So a couple weeks ago, I heard that the Epstein client list was going to come out on Jan 1. So now what is it? Are we Jan 3 already? It's already January 3rd. There's no Epstein client list yet, but I guess it's sitting there waiting. There's 250 names. So there's do you know anything about the Epstein?
Oh yeah.
Do you know, what do you know about Epstein? Like what do you,
I mean,
what have you heard?
I think you know, am I knee deep in the weeds on it? No, but I mean,
you don't want to know too much.
No, I mean, clearly, I think what any reasonable person can take from it is there was a lot of influential people involved in his lifestyle that obviously don't want their name out there. And, you know, it's going to be interesting to see if that information does get released. Obviously, the lack of releasing of it probably is very indicative.
Well, there's
the damage.
There's the flight logs, but then there's a client list, which is not the same thing as the flight logs. Sure. Because just because somebody's on a plane with Epstein doesn't mean that they're doing business with him. But then there's like a third tier of client list on the flight logs and documented multiple island visits to Epstein Island.
That would be a bigger concern.
Do you think that the government, who I do believe is in charge of releasing those names, and knowing how much the government, I'm going to use the term, the current administration, the general infrastructure of the feds and the deep state in conjunction, which I do believe the deep state exists in terms of there are lots of unelected bureaucrats that hold immense power. I don't even know the names of some of these people, and we don't elect them.
Those people go from administration to administration,
right.
and it keeps continuity.
Right. And they protect themselves as to they don't want to get in bad favor with the president. So they do what they do thy bidding of the president.
They're the yes people.
Yeah. But do you think that Trump's name is going to be on the Epstein client list?
It'd be a bombshell if it was. I mean, that could rock the primary. I don't know, though. It's
doesn't it make sense? Because so this client list is going to come out. It was supposed to come out on Jan 1. And so my Twitter feed, I have my own kind of personalized Twitter feed. Do you read Twitter?
I do.
I'm not saying
post or I don't ever tweet or anything like. I use it for sports.
Okay, well, I mean, that's probably what Twitter should be about. It should be about family and sports.
For me, it's sports update.
So do you think that the current administration and the deep state, who doesn't seem to like Trump very much at all, do you think that either A, they're going to release the list because Trump's name is on the list, or do you think that Trump's name may not be on the list, but his name will be on there anyway because they hate him so much? Like, no matter what Trump's name, because when this list comes out...
My take would be is if his name is legitimately on the list, that would have already been out. They would have been, given all the court cases with Trump and everything else, at the end of the day, the administration has their thumb on those government bodies.
But wouldn't they have to release... I mean, if they only release one name... They're like, by the way, there's 500 people on this list, but we're only going to release Trump because Trump's on there and Trump. Because
has it stopped him yet?
Well, I mean, I guess not.
So it's giving how, when you look how the feds or the Department of Justice, the FBI has become political. When you look at right now, you could argue some of the cases against Trump are political witch hunt. If his name was on there, I'm going to assume that they would have been screaming from the mountaintop, even if they didn't release the other names, because nobody would care about the other names on there if his name was on there. That would be all the media would talk about. So I feel like the lack of his name being released it tells me an awful lot that I'm going to say it's probably not there.
You don't think his name's on it?
But we'll find out.
Oh my gosh. When they announced that list, I mean, do you think Bill Clinton's name's on it? Did you see the painting that they pulled out of Epstein's place of Clinton?
I'd be more concerned if my name was Clinton than Trump on that list coming out.
You would be?
Oh, I mean, there's already been more evidence of Clinton's relationship or contacts with Epstein.
Did you see the painting?
No.
Okay. So you got to go to the interwebs and type in Bill Clinton, Epstein painting, something like that. Just tie those words together and do a search on the internet for that. Spoiler alert. It is Bill Clinton in a very nice high level, like oil or acrylic painting. And it's got him laying on some type of really nice Barca lounger chair couch. And he's laying sideways. And he's pointing at the camera. He's smiling like with this like look in his eye. And he's in a blue dress and high heels. Not making this up. I'm not making up any of this stuff.
I don't know if I want to visualize that.
No. Yeah. Correction. Don't look it up. You'll burn your eyes out.
Can't unsee it.
No. So where do you, so I'm going to talk more a little bit about you now.
Yeah.
So you're a pretty big worker. You do a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Nope. It's,
do you have a retirement age?
No. I mean,
do you think you're ever going to stop working, or do you think you're going to retire to the beach, the golf thing,
That's a tough one.
Are you too far away from this to even talk about it?
I'm not where I want to be yet. So I think when I start checking off those achievements that I want to get to as career professionally, then I think that conversation will take care of itself. Do I ever see myself just fully retiring? No, because I get stir crazy on a 3-day weekend. So now when I'm 20 years older, maybe is that a different conversation? Sure, but I'm nowhere close, and I mean, shoot, I'm 43. So, I told myself it was 100 mile an hour till I'm 50. Then it's a regroup, reassess where we at. But even then I just don't see that where I'm going to be just fully retired and have no structure in a day. While there's times where I get burned out on the workload, it's what I enjoy. I enjoy seeing things get accomplished, seeing things come together. And so it's, the grind of it, yeah, it takes a toll. But then when a project finishes or this idea comes to fruition, until I lose that drive, we're not anywhere close.
So you feel like you have a lot of time left to work.
I think so, because it's getting, by no means are we where we want to be, but it's getting more fun now just because, I don't know, I guess it's you're playing with bigger chess pieces and it's more fun. You feel like you're when you do something, it's a bigger impact, and right now we're in such a growth stage over at the ADM facility that, I don't feel like we've scratched the full potential on revitalizing that building as far as, we're doing manufacturing in there, we're doing storage in there, different warehousing, and, we've got 20-some people working in there, and, that still keeps me rolling on it.
Do you have a hard time finding people to work?
Not really. We're pretty solid there, but, we we're generally fairly selective on who we bring in, and, really we've had a very low turnover rate, and so far so good. Now, is the labor market like it was 10 years ago? No, you definitely, you put up with a little more than you would have 10 years ago, so it's like when I look at my dad, how he ran it, he would have probably fired half the people that worked for all our places because you could do that because there would be somebody else to hire. Whereas right now, it's a little different animal that, if somebody's late, you know, you maybe have a conversation with them, and you're not just see you later.
Have you spoken publicly about you mentioned ADM, like the project over there. Have you spoken publicly about exactly what you're doing over there?
I did on the when I was with the Daily Muddy, or not the whatever with the
Club Money.
Club Muddy with Brittany and Ashley.
Okay, good. What is just so I'm on the same page right now? What are you doing? What part of that project are you doing right now?
Basically, I mean, it started off, bought it 2.5 years ago, and kind of really was just going to take a slow approach to it. So really, for the first year, didn't do anything, and then we've had some industry here in town reach out last year, last summer, summer before, and they were needing somebody to not just store their stuff, but we're actually doing some packaging, and we're doing some assembly of manufacturing of some items in there. So we warehouse their items, and then we're putting them together, and we might ship them out to their customers. So, that's kind of evolved to where we've got 4 different companies we work with. 3 of them are local, 1 are not. I'll leave their names out of it just because some of them,
sure.
I don't want to say that out there. Others may know, but so no, we've got some that we just strictly warehouse their products. So that was just pallet storage. We're just receiving their materials, and then they send transfer trucks, and they send it out to their building, their plants. We've got others that we're actually doing final assembly for them and then shipping it out directly to their customers. But, and then we've just really have started reusing a lot of the grain conveyor systems within the building as well. So, that was kind of an add-on bonus at the end. So we've got, several thousand tons of material being stored in there for another feed supplier here in town. And so it's really just, I would say it's more of a, you kind of a 3PL logistics type setup over there. And
what's 3PL?
Third-party logistics. So it's it's almost like the final mile of an Amazon delivery when you think of it. So it allows, a place like that wants to dedicate 100% of their building square footage to their hardcore manufacturing, and some of their smaller scale or specialized stuff they can outsource to us, and it allows them to have more square footage within their building for their nut bread and butter. And so it's kind of allowed us just to kind of act as that logistics group for them, because then we when they send a customer to pick up their items, they're coming to our docks. They're not tying up their docks at their facility. So everything is sitting on our docks ready to go, and we receive stuff for them and ship it back out. And like I said, and I would say we've probably got, of the 20 people there, I mean, we've got, 12 of them are involved in just manufacturing side of it.
One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, we're going to table that one topic because our friend from the Park District asked us to kind of like table some of this discussion. But I want about a certain subject matter that we'll talk about next week. But if you were in charge of the project of putting in a amphitheater somewhere in Quincy, either on the riverfront or anywhere of your choosing, my question is this: since you know how to put stuff together, and you know the right people to talk to, and you sound like a logistics person, you know how to put ideas together. See, the thing is, like, ideas are a dime a dozen, but execution is very good. Execution is rare.
Ideas.
We all have ideas, but the actual execution of it is different. So, for the remaining of the podcast, I want to ask you a logistics issue about how to actually get something, because we're not talking about sports complex yet, because we promised we wouldn't.
Yep.
We won't talk about that, but we can talk openly about either a music amphitheater, or you're either pro or against the riverfront. And then I want to segue into college football, if you don't mind, because when it comes to college football, you're somebody that I want to talk to about. So there's the great Dominic O'Donnell, who is like a really good person to talk to. There's like guys like Tyler Tomlinson is a really good person to talk to about sports in general. But I think you are a really good person to talk to about specifically college football.
College football, I live, eat, and sleep it.
So I want to move into that. But first, do you have an opinion on if the riverfront in Quincy should be done at all, onto any level?
Yeah, obviously I have an opinion, and I'm against the current proposals of it.
Okay.
Am I against the riverfront? No. It's just, I don't think we have the dollars in place to truly undertake it.
Okay.
And one, the cost will so far have already climbed
To astronomical levels.
before we've even done anything.
Before we did anything, yeah.
We're not sitting flush with the money. This is like putting a vacation on a credit card. We don't have the dollars.
Right.
Now, and I'm not one of these people out there, we need to have every street fixed. We'll never have every street fixed. We'll never have every water line replaced. Those are items that wear out. You're always going to have those maintenance. So I'm not unrealistic in terms of that. I think there's the one bucket that is infrastructure. That's an ongoing. When you look at dollars spent, public dollars, then your other bucket is what can we invest in to reinvest in our community? The riverfront would fall in that. And you have to continue to reinvest in our community, whether it be sports, whether it be riverfront, whatever it may be. So, I mean, we can't just sit there and say we're not going to do this because we don't have our streets fixed.
Okay.
I think that's too short-sighted for the city. So it's like I'm good with people that want to put the plan in place on the riverfront, but so far it's been an awful lot of let's reach out to the three government bodies and get money, and I've not seen any sort of private developers taking that step forward. And so it's like that's where I struggle with, because if it's strictly public dollars, there's not a really return investment on the riverfront, and not everything is. But
is there any reason why we should put or install or develop and move towards? Would there be anybody in the private industry that would want to put a small amphitheater, or
I don't think
or is
so.
that another pie in the sky thing?
I mean, you've got Scott Edlund's done great with his bands up on the rail, and so it's like.
But I heard that's coming to an end.
And it may be if the Newcomb lot sells, I think that's been up debate. So, I mean, I think in something like that, I think that you let private development steer that right now.
Okay.
Now, because at the end of the day, we go build an amphitheater down there. Great. Did that really help the other businesses? And I'm not, like when Scott has his bands there, I see a downturn at the liquor stores that weekend. I'm not crying because he's doing it with his own dollars. But when we start taking government dollars and working against your other businesses, I don't know that that's the right use of it.
Right.
So great. If there's an amphitheater and somebody wants to go do it, awesome. But if, I'm sitting here looking at the dollars we pay in every month in the food and beverage tax, the 1% tax, and how much of that goes west of 8th Street.
I was at a city council meeting. For those who don't know, the food and bev tax was something that was kind of invented here, or modeled from stolen from someplace else. Ideas. A lot of people who are who are developers of Quincy, either from like the city, county side, or even private development, they take ideas from other places and try to make them work here if they work, which is fine. And that's probably not a bad idea, as opposed to trying to reinvent the wheel all the time. But I was at a city council meeting one time, and Alderman Farha, at the end of the meeting, to prove a point, said, "Hey, I would like to buy four laptops for some assistant administrators inside the city, because they need laptops. They need these computers. They're 7 years old. They're crashing. We need new cybersecurity on them. The firewalls are gone. We need to. If they need to work from home, they need to work remote. We have to have these computers." And everybody kind of agreed that they had to have them. So Farha said, "Yeah, just take it from the food and beverage tax." And then that was the end of the meeting. And I walked out, and then a bunch of us walked out of the meeting and said, Did he really say it? Because he's making a joke that you can tap the food and beverage.
He's making a joke, but there's truth to that joke.
But there's truth to the joke, and he's angry, rightfully so, that anybody can just tap that. Not anybody, but it's kind of like a slush fund for like whoever can have the best idea for it.
Well, it was one of those that it was, let's pass it and we'll create the language later type thing. So the tax was passed through the city council without the framework of how it could be used or not used. So once you don't have those guidelines, it's allowed it to just expand. It's no different than they earmarked. It hasn't been spent yet, but the Welcome Inn or the other hotel that was down there, the Eagle's Nest or whatever, had $500,000 apiece earmarked from the food and beverage fund if somebody wanted to buy them and tear them down. Well, that's what the TIF money should be for. Those are both TIF districts, but they can't do that because the TIF district's already been robbed. So now, let's go to the next account that has money in it. Food and beverage brings in $1.7 million a year. How do we spend that? $1 million of it went to Target. Do I have a problem with Target coming here? No, but that could have came out of the sales tax fund. Why did it come out of the food and beverage fund?
It shouldn't have.
That had, so there, I look at it, I have a store across the street from Target paying into the food and beverage fund going to my competitor.
And by the way, is your company publicly traded?
No.
Publicly traded company on the New York Stock Exchange?
They were coming here regardless.
Well, I mean, now the city of Quincy is subsidizing Fortune 500 companies.
Yeah.
Which is
at the
insane.
expense of your local business.
At the expense of the local business.
And I just don't think the government should be in that.
Well, I mean, we're talking about ethics here. They're ethical issues. All right, you ready for college football?
Sure.
Okay. You mentioned in the green room, and I was not under the impression that the college football, so the NCAA's college football, I didn't know they were going to go to 12. For some reason, I had it stuck in my crawl that there were 8. And right now, some people don't care about college football. So
No,
I hope, but some
in a-
people, it is such an amazing pageantry. That sport is, it's the weirdest thing. So all of my kids play sports. Okay, none of them play American football with pads and helmets and stuff like that. But we're always throwing the football around the house. All my kids.
Absolutely.
My 4-year-old. Like, my 4-year-old has a pro-size NFL leather football. It's one of our prized possessions. It actually belongs to my wife. I love that my wife even has a football. I actually don't have my own football. But we throw this around. The only sport we watch at home is American football.
Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Day, what's going to be on the TV at the house?
It's not that we don't like soccer or basketball or baseball. We love those sports.
American football to me is just more social. Soccer, the hardest part with is soccer, and my wife and daughter are diehard soccer, but soccer, you're not going to captivate a group to watch it because you might watch 90 minutes and there's not a single goal. And I'm sorry, we've become a society where we want results and we want to see points. We want to see scored. But also with football, American football, that after 4th down and they punt the ball, it's going to go to commercial. I can go to the fridge. You don't have to capture somebody's attention the entire time. Soccer, you go to the bathroom at the wrong time, you miss the one goal of the game.
It's truly amazing. To your point, we all so my boy needed a potty break. I want to get something to drink from the fridge. And it's exactly what you said. Here comes the punt. All of a sudden, the receiving team is doing this because we're looking for a fair catch. As soon as we know that's going to happen, we kind of sit there for 5 seconds. Is he going to drop it? What's going to happen? He's not going to run. Okay, knee down. Boom.
Let's go.
Go.
And then you come back.
What a the idea that you can put an offense together. It's like a game plan. It's like war. It's not like, I know you can do this in soccer too, but soccer's more fluid. You can kind of do it with baseball. Every pitch is different.
Every pitch is different.
Every batter is
but
different.
With baseball, you know who's pitching and you know who's hitting. With football, any given player on that field can make an impact offensively or defensively, whereas baseball, if you're on defense and the ball's not hit to you and you're an outfielder, you make no impact. Yes. Whereas football, you got to watch the entire game or the entire field because any given moment, just like we saw with the Lions against the Cowboys, a lineman runs out and catches the 2-point, which called back inadvertently.
Right.
But all of a sudden, that's the difference is baseball, I can't watch baseball for hours on end because that guy that could be a superstar, well, guess what? He's only going to bat once every 3 innings. Football, any given play.
Baseball has traditionally been America's pastime. Do you think American football has taken that over yet?
Oh, no doubt. I mean, no doubt.
No doubt.
Yeah, I mean, you even look at, it used to be Christmas Day was NBA. Now Christmas Day is all NFL. I know it's not Major League Baseball.
Does
but
the
when you think
NBA
about
play on Christmas Day?
Or the fact that none of us are, but it used to be.
We don't even know.
We don't even know. It used to be there was no football on Christmas Day, and that was your only sports game, NBA. But when you look at baseball versus football, I would say yes, absolutely, it's surpassed baseball. Just when you look at the casual fan, your diehard fan is going to be your baseball loyalist, but women are more likely. You look at the Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift. All of a sudden now women are becoming Chiefs fans, and things like that. So it's just
the number one woman.
Yeah,
the person of the year is a Chiefs fan. God bless, right? So crazy. So real quick, for those of the people that, who are watching us right now that like to talk about football, this is really weird. So your team is Alabama.
Yep.
Okay.
Has been for years. Used to live down there.
Yeah. And so you guys were the 4 seed.
Yep.
And you guys played Michigan. My wife is from Michigan. So when she was growing up, she didn't really watch a lot of football. But then when we started dating, we got married, started having kids, I was not a Michigan fan. Okay, so I don't want to. So you can smack me if you want, but just hear me out. So I'm from Chicago. I'm a Chicago boy. Born in St. Louis, raised in Chicago. Then I kind of split the difference almost in Quincy. So it's like, what should I do? Should I keep being a Bears fan? I live down the street from Walter Payton. So when the Super Bowl, or when the Bears won the Super Bowl, that was a big impactful thing for me as a kid. And now living kind of closer to Kansas City, and my wife being a huge Pat Mahomes fan because she owned him for 2 years on Dominic O'Donnell's fantasy football league. So she's the white unicorn straight out of Michigan. So now we're like, okay, oh crap. Do we need to be Michigan fans now because we want to go to the big house and we want to go, and her family's from Michigan. But it's like, okay, what happens if they play the University of Notre Dame? I hope the Wolverines, implode on themselves because I like Notre Dame. You probably hate Notre Dame. But
yeah.
When Michigan just beat Alabama, I did not see the Texas-Washington game.
Well, just terrible time frame. They should have started the first game at 2:00, kicked the second game off at 6. But
I fell asleep.
7:45 kickoff.
I fell asleep in the third quarter. I think I woke up in the middle of the night. It was like 24-20. Wait, who won?
Washington won.
Okay.
Texas had the opportunity to win it at the last second and didn't get the touchdown.
Okay. And I didn't look after. I literally haven't thought about this until just now. So I did not. This is really weird that I didn't know who won that game. I just busy.
There was a problem with everybody had to go back to work the next day, and then you're doing a 7:45 kickoff.
Yeah.
It was terrible timing.
So now Michigan is going to play
Washington
and this upcoming Monday.
Yep.
And I'm guessing Michigan is the deep favorite?
I don't think deep favorite. They're favored, but I don't know. So far, Washington.
Do you care who wins?
Washington.
You son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Okay, real quick. Next year, where does Alabama fit in this scheme? They're going to take the CFP is going to move from 4 teams to 12. That's a really big move.
Yeah,
is this good? Is this good for college football?
Yes and no. It's good for the college football fan. I think, but the downside is it's going to diminish the regular season, the value of a win, because now every week doesn't matter. Because it's going to make it more like the NFL, where Bama could have lost 2 games this regular season instead of just to Texas. They lost 1 game to Texas, had to beat Georgia to win it, to get into the playoff. Well, Bama probably could have lost to Georgia in the SEC, had 2 losses, and still would have snuck in the top 12. So I think that what you're going to see is why I love college football is because of the passion and every week matters. It's going to somewhat go away. Yes, we're getting some cool games at the end because it's a play or go home. But I think all of a sudden your Alabama LSU game isn't as important during the regular season, or your Michigan Ohio State doesn't have the same importance because No big deal. As long as we're in the top 12, we're getting in. And it's going to make the rest of the bowl games even more laughable.
Well, yeah.
Because
what's up with this transfer portal? This thing is kind of it's not new, but it's
about 4 years old, I think it was.
4 years old?
Yeah.
But what's happening is after somebody plays a whole season and they're kind of done, they've got this one last hurrah. And depending on how you play and depending on, I guess it goes by rankings. Not really sure exactly how the bowl games work. But, you know,
Yeah,
so for
they
example,
work off rankings.
Like Liberty University played Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
And you see like a wide discrepancy in the rankings there. I think Oregon was about 8.
Yeah, well, what it is
happens?
a lot of the bowl games have set conference allegiances. So,
Okay.
So like, you know, when Oregon played Liberty, it was, you know, Pac-12 was going to take the highest ranked Pac-12 team. Well, the highest ranked was Washington. They were in the playoff. So then that fell to Oregon. But then your second spot, that bowl can elect to take the highest at-large person, which in that case was Liberty. And at-large means they're really not in a major Power 5 conference, whether it be Big 12, Big 10.
Oh.
So Liberty was an undefeated team, so they took that one. Now, a lot of it...
And Oregon had the option to choose?
No, that's the bowls.
Okay, the bowls.
Bowls basically have their conference allegiances that they are supposed to take. So,
Okay.
So certain bowls might typically be the best Big 10 versus the best Pac-12 team.
Okay.
Then another bowl might be SEC versus the Big 10. And so, but then there's some of those New Year's Day bowls. There's a little more flexibility on those to take the highest at-large team, or like a Notre Dame or whatnot. So it's that's why you kind of created such a gap in the rankings. Is a Liberty didn't really play anybody. Yes, they were undefeated, but
They're good.
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, finished better than a lot of teams, and I think they would beat a lot of teams. You know, were they good for a New Year's Day bowl? I mean, they were better than Florida State, so you know, it's I think as you go to a 12-team playoff, I think it's just the rest of those bowl games are going to be less meaningful. You know, now with 12-team playoff, I don't think anybody's going to have the debate of, you know, the debate we had this year with Bama, Florida State, Georgia not getting in. Who's supposed to get in? So I think you're going to eliminate that. Next thing you know, you hear about number 13 team complaining because they didn't get in.
13, 14, 15. So
Yeah, I mean, you're just moving the goalpost.
Are the current CFP committee, so there's a group of people that make these decisions.
And it rotates. It's a mix of former coaches, current athletic directors, and then just some at-large. So
Is that public information, the people on the committee?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And what it is, I think each person serves a max of 4-year term, and they roll off a fourth of the board each year.
Do they vote anonymously? Or like how?
Yeah.
What happens if somebody on that board, like, what if someone finds out that they, like, kind of screwed a team? And then, I mean, is their life in danger? I mean, I've heard, like, things like, I remember, like, Condoleezza Rice, I think, was on the committee.
She was on it when it first came out.
Yeah. And she was like
She's a football junkie.
very well-known. I mean, she's a badass.
She's a football junkie, though.
Right, but no, I mean, I think she should have ran for president.
Sure, I
but
agree.
she preferred to be on the college football playoff committee. You know what I mean? That's like, I mean, she's a brilliant woman. I just liked her a lot. I really liked everything she had to say. But what do you think Alabama's prospects are for next year?
I mean, with the 12-team playoff, I think that they're not going anywhere. They didn't beat Michigan, but they lost in overtime to the top team in the country. We've got a lot of players coming back. I think we'll be right in the thick of it. Because you only have to win the SEC next year to get in the top 12. So that's where I think what you'll see next year is with 12-team playoff, you're going to probably see 5 to 6 teams from the SEC in the 12. You're going to probably see 3 to 4 Big 10, and then that's going to leave a couple out there for a Notre Dame or an ACC. And so at that point, you went from one SEC team in it this year to, if you'd looked at the top 12, you'd have had 5 in there.
Oh, my gosh.
This year.
Yeah, that's a good
So,
point.
like I said, it diminishes the value or the negative of a regular season loss. So, barring a catastrophic meltdown, they'll be in the playoff. Then it's what do they do with it from there? I mean, I think that I thought we were early this year. I didn't feel like we had the horses this year. we outperformed expectations and won some games ugly, but won. So I think next year, they ought to be right in the thick of it down to the finals, or at least semifinals, I would think.
All right.
But
Well,
that's why they play the game.
Listen, you fielded all these questions beautifully. Thanks so much for coming on the pod.
Those are easy.
those were, that's why I ended with Alabama and college football. Thanks so much, buddy.
You bet, man.
See ya.